How do you feel great on vacation? Like really good? Easy. You go to Aruba. You'll spend your time relaxing on cool white sand beaches and floating in healing blue water. You'll immerse yourself in natural wonder and find your center on an island where things move at your speed. You won't just feel great, you'll feel relaxed, renewed, and ready for life. That's the Aruba effect. Plan your trip at Aruba.com.
You are listening to Women's Running Stories, where exceptional women runners share inspirational stories about their running experiences.
I feel like I always had that idea that I knew I could do something more. The surprise part definitely comes from, I think you always have this like time goal in your mind or place goal in your mind. And then when you continue to like surpass that, and then you have to create, a new goal and a new goal, that brings together a lot of the surprise of, wow, I didn't know I had that within me. But then also a little bit of expectation of, I know I could do this type mindset as well, just because, I've put so much work in and been super consistent over the months and years. Hi, my name is Savannah Berry, and I am currently living in Orem, Utah. And I am currently sponsored by Asics, and running is not my only career, as much as I wish it could be sometimes. I also work at a school, and I also work at a university as a academic mentor.
Yes, this episode features elite runner Savannah Berry, who is a racer to watch. She's been coming into her own this year in ways that are surprising, and at the same time, not so surprising, given the hard work and consistent training she's put in month after month, year after year. And that is showing up in her race performances at nationally competitive events, like the one featured in this race report. You're going to hear how it all went down from Savannah's perspective at the recent 20-kilometer National Championships, which just took place on September 2nd in New Haven, Connecticut. But before you hear more from Savannah, I do want to welcome you to Women's Running Stories. I am Cherie Louise Turner, and I am the host and producer of this podcast. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. This is a terrific episode. So let's get into it. This is a race report, and for the past couple of years now, I have been following the USATF Road Circuit Series, producing a race report for each event, featuring one top 10 finisher telling her story of how the race went down from her perspective. The USATF Road Circuit Series is a series of races that happen all throughout the year and all throughout the country, and each race serves as a national championship event for the distance or the type of race that is being run. At each race, in addition to vying for a national title, runners have an opportunity to win cash prizes and an opportunity to earn points. The points go to the series overall, which is decided at the end of the year. This most recent race in the series, the 20K Champs, featured a really strong field, including Jess McLean, who placed 4th earlier this year at the 2024 Olympic Marathon Trials. This made her an alternate for the Paris team, as well as Keira D'Amato, the former American marathon record holder and also the current record holder at this 20K race. And just as a reminder, the 20K is 12.4 miles, which is just shy of a half marathon. A half marathon is 13.1 miles. Also in the mix at the 20K were Rachel Smith, Emma Grace Hurley, and Anna Frisbee, who are the top 3 in the series standing to date in this race series. Also on the line was Lauren Higgins, McKenna Morley, and Carrie Elwood. And yeah, there was a lot of great competition. Coming into the 20K, Savannah had never earned a podium spot at a national championship event. Her best performances to date have come this year. She kicked off the year with an incredible race at the Olympic Marathon Trials in February. She finished 12th. And in May, she placed 4th at the Philly Half Marathon. Progressing to this level has been a steady process since Savannah graduated college in 2018, having raced for the NCAA Division I school, Utah Valley University. This is all to say that Savannah had a lot of running and racing under her belt leading up to this 20K in New Haven, and you're about to hear all about it. So let's hear this race report story from Savannah Berry's perspective, starting with a look back on how she got into distance and marathon racing in the first place. It all started in her hometown.
I did grow up in Bakersfield. I actually moved up to Utah just for college and fell in love with the environment and the people here in the running community. But I will say I still do have like a stronghold for Bakersfield. The people are still texting me, messaging me. I have a local running group that my aunt participates in. They all participate in marathons and kind of got me intrigued of what that would kind of be like. They're called the Donut Shop Racers. So a really fun name for that. And they meet usually at Starbucks every morning. And they've just been so inclusive of me. And when I was in high school, and just gave me kind of this mindset of oh, there's more out there, even past, college and things like that. You can work a full-time job and still run. And honestly, when I first graduated college, I was a little bit kind of, curious of what I'm still going to do with running. And that became, kind of the easiest answer for me. Why don't I try a marathon?
So after graduation from Utah Valley in 2018, that's exactly what Savannah did. Within a year of graduation, she had set a respectable marathon PR of 3 hours and 15 minutes. And then her boyfriend suggested she go for the 2020 Olympic trials qualifying time standard, which was a much more challenging time of 2 hours.
That was not even something I had ever thought about. He actually was the one who wanted to go for it with another friend from college, and they told me, hey, you know what? I think you can do it too. You ought to just give it a chance while we're also doing it. And yeah, I honestly give him full credit for that, because he's the one who even put that little seed of thought into my brain. And really, it's kind of crazy. Yeah, I just I don't think there's any chance I would have been where I am now without that little seed that just planted.
And in December of that year, 2019, Savannah ran an astonishing 2:44 at the California International Marathon, better known as CIM. Savannah had done it, and she would go on to race her very first Olympic trials marathon the next year, 2020, in Atlanta, where she finished 233rd place. For 2024, the Olympic trials marathon qualifying time standard dropped to 2 hours and 37 minutes, and Savannah responded by running a 2:33 at CIM in December of 2022. She followed that up with an incredible run at the McCurdy Micro Marathon in October of 2023, dipping under 2:30. She ran a 2:29:06. And then she earned herself that incredible 12th place spot at the 2024 trials. Savannah chalks up her progress to consistency and hard work, and also to the support system that surrounds her.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I draw a lot of confidence from the people around me, for sure. I, for sure, in college had a little bit of difficulty just being confident in myself and my abilities. And I mean, it was the same after college, but I have a really, really great support system who all of them probably think I can do so much more than I believe I can. So sometimes it's about, just relying on other people's confidence in you more than even your own confidence. There's been days where my coach has given me workouts that I'm like, there is no way, he's crazy. I'm not going to hit that. But I go and try it. And when I get it, I'm like, okay, he was right. I could do it. But in college, I had struggled with a lot of injuries. And even post-collegiately, training for my first marathon, struggled with a lot of injuries. And it really did take me kind of putting together the pieces of what was I doing wrong, and creating some consistency in order to kind of see the results I've seen in the last couple years. And specifically, it's been the injury thing was not prioritizing recovery. I really, really spent a lot of times figuring out how can I recover better, and then also strengthening myself a lot. I definitely wasn't a huge like weightlifter or anything like that, or like any type of stability, mobility type exercises. And so going into kind of more of my recent races and the past couple years, focusing on both consistency in the recovery and consistency in the strength training. And knowing that has allowed me to be consistent in my running, because in the past it's just been, injuries that will put me out for months or weeks or whatever it is. And once you can create that consistent environment, that's when you actually start seeing, your work come to fruition.
Savannah has continued building on that consistent training all the way up to approaching the 20K.
Getting into like the pre-race, it really boils down to trying to keep my brain out of it. I think I tend to overthink things and stress about things a lot. So just spending time with my family and kind of letting them take some of that focus off of the race for me is really helpful. And it helps me just like keep my nerves down and things like that. But waking up the morning of, I usually don't sleep as great as probably I would like to, just because I'm always so excited and also always a little bit stressed out about it. And so I usually just wake up, have my breakfast immediately, get ready for the day and do the simple things like listen to music. So that morning I was definitely in the mood for like something to pump me up. So a little bit more of like rap and upbeat music.
With rap pumping her up in her headphones, Savannah made her way to the start line.
So the weather was honestly as good as you could probably hope for. Not too hot, there's a little humidity, not really anything to complain about, a little bit of wind, but I think the weather was pretty much as good as you can get for the most part. And then the course, I wish I could say I knew more about it, but again, I'm definitely one of those people who kind of overthinks things. So I had a friend who I just asked the night before, hey, where are the hills at? Kept those in a mental note, and honestly, that's pretty much all I knew about the course was there's a hill at mile 2 and a hill at mile 9.
And when it came to a game plan, Savannah had some simple, straightforward aims.
Yeah, so the 20K is a really odd distance. Like, I don't think I've ever raced it before. So it's really hard to have kind of a time goal in a race that you've never, done before. And so going into it, my big strategy was to try to run with the best. And there is a huge field of amazing, talented women in that race. And so it wasn't very hard to find. But I really wanted to give myself a chance to just hang with the top women. And even if that meant, I wasn't feeling out that day and felt it later in the race, I just wanted to give myself the opportunity to be up there with them, because those are some of the people that I aspire to, be like and be running with in those big races like New York and Chicago and things like that are going to come up. I ran Pittsburgh in May, and I felt like I kind of went out more conservatively towards, I know I can run this pace. And so this race was more so about, I want to test myself and see what I can run, if I can keep up with these women. I was definitely a way of like testing myself, testing my limits. And so for me, it wasn't so much of looking at a pace. It was put yourself in that front pack and see what happens. So the gun goes off. Before the gun goes off, I guess, I positioned myself on the farthest left side because I know my family's over there. And I feel like I definitely thrive when I have people I know I can see on the course. So I position myself on the far left, and the gun goes off, and I immediately get behind those women who I'm essentially trying to run with in that front pack. And so some of like the ones that I'm familiar with, like obviously Kira D'Amato and Jess McLean were up there. And so I positioned myself right behind them, try to tuck in, and essentially just try to take the thought out of it. I didn't look at my watch at all, did not check to see pace. I just wanted to make sure I was in that group and in a position where I could kind of be active in the race. Throughout the race, I had quite a bit of family members who were there, and so they kind of split up, and they actually probably knew the course better than I did, to be honest. And so they went from different points, and so that I had someone at almost every single spot kind of cheering me on. And really, it stayed pretty packed up most of the race. It was definitely a little bit more strategical, I think, and a little bit more tactical. And so everyone kind of hung in that pack together. Getting to about mile 9-ish was when we still had a pretty good pack. And all of a sudden I got this surge of I'm feeling really good. And so I took the lead for a little bit there and tried to open it up my stride and hopefully, lose a couple people on the pack. Mainly just because, I'm not a super fast leg speed runner. So for me, if there's less people at the finish, that's a good thing. So if I was able to, and I had some energy, I guess, to kind of break up that pack a little, I was going to go for it. And then I think it was about maybe mile 10 or 11 where Kira made a pretty good commanding lead, and she's got a lot of leg speed. So for me, it was a little bit hard to match that. And so both her and Jess went and definitely hit a little bit of a hard spot there. But I was able to, kind of research a little bit mile 11 and 12 and hang on for the third. I was super excited to finish top 3, but honestly, in those last couple miles, I always get a little bit of resurgence. So in that second little half, the second win that I had there, I was really trying to close that gap and maybe catch someone, just because at the same time, it really isn't ever over until it's over, right? So if you can close that gap and if you can try to pass some people in the very end, you just never know that it's always a possibility for you.
Savannah put down an outstanding performance, hanging with the leaders up to the very last stages of the race and holding on for an incredible third place behind Jess McLean in second and winner Kira D'Amato. And while this was another of the best performances of Savannah's career, it's clear she's hungry for more. And she's always quick to credit the people who inspire and support her for her ability to continue to push the boundary of what she's capable of.
Every racer is obviously highs and lows, and the high points are obviously easy. You're feeling great and you go with it. The low points is where you kind of have to draw on certain things outside of yourself, I guess, to be able to continue. So for me, I definitely, in this race particularly, I hit probably a low point around mile 10 to 11. And for me, it's just remembering certain things that keep me going. Because in the moment, you're like, oh, this is absolutely terrible. I want to be done immediately. But really, it's all a mental thing, obviously. Pain is definitely, your body is never really done when it thinks it's done. Your brain can carry it so much farther than what it actually thinks. And yeah, it really does help to have people who inspire you every day. And so that's what I really think back to every single time, is think back to those people who inspire me to do a little bit more, push a little more, and endure a little more pain, because there's always a little bit more in there, So I guess this past year was a little bit of a difficult year because my dad had a little bit of a health scare, and he had to get a huge major surgery that left his walking and just his normal day-to-day functions a little bit different than what it normally looked like, I guess, for the most part. And he was one of those people who, when I was a child and running track in elementary school and things like that, he was the one who was going out and running next to me. And then when he couldn't keep up with me anymore, he was biking next to me and, driving his car around, making sure I was able to, make it from point A to point B safely. So he's someone who's definitely always inspired me, just because he's has the most selfless and highest amount of work ethic of anyone I've ever met. And to see him kind of have a little bit of a hard time this past year and, still always put on a positive face and just deal with the situation that he's in, he's definitely someone who I look up to every day and definitely think about a lot when I'm racing. And then I also have my mom. she's definitely my biggest fan, and she would never limit me. And I'm probably a little bit more of a pessimist type personality, and my mom's definitely completely the opposite of that. She's like super positive, and like just anyone's like she's definitely like a hype man, I guess I would say, for sure. She's awesome in that way, and yeah, again, she's been like there from both her and my dad, both of them have been there from day one and have been just as excited to watch me run in elementary school as they are now watching at the Olympic trials and things like that. So it's kind of a fun opportunity to have them be able to see the transition and me mature over the years and things like that. And then within the Utah community, I have my coaches and some physical therapists and things like that who've really, really helped me over the years. And another person definitely is my boyfriend. He is also, I met him in college while running, and he has been incredible. Like, he was the one who inspired me to first try the Olympic trials in 2020, something I never even really gave thought to at all. And he's also that person who, I'm feeling a tweak in my back. He's the first one to go rub out my back. He's the first one to pace me in a workout that I'm like really stressed about. He's the one who's honestly coordinating the whole cheering squad with my family. And trust me, they're hard to like coordinate sometimes with all the different personalities, but he does an amazing job. So he's definitely a person that I really couldn't do any of it without.
With this terrific support team behind her and a commitment to steadily building her strength and speed, Savannah is looking ahead to what's next, boosted by this outstanding result in New Haven.
Yeah, so my huge goal and my eyes right now are set towards New York Marathon in November. And so this was kind of a stepping stone till then. So the big thing I'll take from this race, and I usually try to focus on it in mostly every race for the most part, is not so much of focusing on what other people are doing, but focus on how you're feeling in the moment, and not so much on the pace, but again, like, what do you have in you to push? So I think a lot of this race is going to help me just kind of be a little bit more bold in my moves in the marathon in New York, and maybe be able to just focus in that moment and the there and the now, but not so much about what's going to happen at the end of the race in mile 2, and what's going to happen at the middle of the race before the gun goes off or something like that, but just focusing and taking it mile by mile. So I think that will be a big kind of, I guess, advantage of doing this past race. And basically this race was an opportunity to see where I was at against the top women in the US and see if I could hang with them and put myself in the picture and kind of just test my fitness. It gave me a good look into maybe what pace I'd be wanting to run for New York, and also kind of gave me a little bit of confidence to be able to put myself up there with some of those top women in the US and just see what happens. And you just never know what will happen on the day.
You never know what will happen on the day. It is so true, especially in these longer distance road races. That does bring me to the end of Savannah Berry's race report on the podcast. A huge congratulations to Savannah Berry on her incredible finish at the 20K, and good luck in New York City. Thank you so much, Savannah, for coming on the podcast and telling your 20K story. I really appreciate it. And a little note here, this is Savannah's first time ever on a podcast. I am so excited to get to be the first one to share her running story in audio form. Thanks again, Savannah. Now, I know you, like me, will want to keep up with Savannah, so please look to the show notes for how you can do that. Thank you so much for being here and listening. I always appreciate it. I'm also always thankful when you share this podcast with other people who you know will like these stories too. Thank you. And that does bring us to the end of this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you do not miss any of the great upcoming episodes, including the next race report, which will be covering the USATF 10-kilometer National Championships, coming up soon on September 21st. The race report episode will follow shortly thereafter. All right, that is going to do it for me. I am Cherie Louise Turner, the host and producer of Women's Running Stories. And until next Tuesday, I do wish you healthy, joyful strides forward.
Women's running. Women's running stories.
Running should be simple. Just put on your shoes and go. And yet, when you try to learn about how to get better at it, especially as you age, you're confronted with conflicting advice, complicated workouts, and confusing nutrition trends that just won't work for you. On The Planted Runner, I'll share exactly how to run faster, longer, and feel great doing it at any age because you don't have time to waste. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic, and I went from not running at all in my late 30s to finishing a marathon in 2:58 at age 42, all on a plant-based diet. I've helped hundreds of runners achieve new personal records well into their 60s and even 70s with science-backed training, plant-based nutrition, and proven mental strength techniques. Each episode of The Planted Runner is like a private coaching session on the run, where you'll learn from me and the guests I interview. You'll get actionable lessons to help you become a better runner every week and reach goals that you never thought possible. Whether you're training for your first 5K or your 50th marathon, take along The Planted Runner on your next run. Let me show you how your best running is still ahead of you.